In 2013, Elisa Lam mysteriously disappeared at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. Weeks later, her body was found in a water tank on the building's rooftop. The only clues? A disturbing video of her final moments that shocked the world. Mental health, accident, or something darker? Let's unravel the enigma of Elisa Lam and the mystery behind the infamous Cecil Hotel. Elisa Lam was a young Canadian student full of dreams and aspirations. In early 2013, she embarked on a solo trip through California, eager to explore the world on her own. At 21 years old, Elisa documented her adventures in a personal blog, where she shared thoughts about her mental health, her struggles with bipolar disorder, and her hopes for the future. For her, this trip was a chance for a renewal, a break from studies and routine to discover new places and perhaps herself. In January of that year, Elisa arrived in Los Angeles and checked into the Cecil Hotel, a historic yet decaying building located in the city's downtown area. The hotel, once luxurious, had fallen into disrepair over the years, becoming a place frequented by budget travelers, but also by temporary residents, many of whom faced difficult situations such as drug addiction or homelessness. Elisa had no idea that the place she was staying in carried a sinister reputation. The young woman seemed excited about her journey, updating her blog and sending messages to her parents, reassuring them that she was okay. However, by the end of January, everything changed. Elisa stopped communicating with her family. No phone calls, no messages. Worried, her parents immediately contacted the Los Angeles authorities, who began investigating the case. Elisa Lam had disappeared without a trace. For weeks, the search for the young woman was fruitless. The hotel's security cameras captured Elisa for the last time in one of the elevators, in what would become one of the most disturbing and enigmatic videos on the internet. In the video, Elisa is seen entering the elevator and pressing several buttons at once. She seems agitated, repeatedly looking out of the elevator as if being followed or fleeing from something. Her movements are erratic, and at one point, she makes strange gestures as if communicating with someone not visible. The video quickly spread across social media and the news, leaving the public both intrigued and disturbed. Elisa's behavior, captured in the footage, sparked numerous theories. Was she being chased? Was she experiencing a psychotic episode related to her bipolar disorder? Or was there something supernatural happening inside the Cecil Hotel? Meanwhile, the police continued their investigation, but without concrete leads. There were no signs of struggle or violence in her room, and no evidence that she had left the hotel. The mystery surrounding her disappearance and her bizarre behavior in the elevator cast an even darker shadow over the case, leaving everyone wondering what happened to Elisa Lam. The Cecil Hotel opened its doors in 1927, a time of great prosperity in the United States. Located in the heart of Los Angeles, it was designed to be a luxurious haven for wealthy travelers, featuring Art Deco architecture and elegantly decorated rooms. The expectation was that the hotel would become an icon of Californian hospitality. However, the golden dream of the Cecil quickly began to crumble as the country sank into the Great Depression. As Los Angeles expanded, the neighborhood around the hotel slowly decayed. The Cecil, once a symbol of luxury, became a refuge for low-income residents, addicts, and eventually a meeting point for criminals. Located near Skid Row, one of the city's most marginalized areas, the hotel housed both temporary residents and passing guests, such as Elisa Lam. But beyond the social and economic changes, the Cecil Hotel began to gain notoriety for far more sinister events. Throughout its history, the hotel accumulated an astonishing list of tragedies. Numerous suicides occurred within its rooms, and many guests leaped to their deaths from its windows. Between the 1930s and 1960s, local newspapers frequently published stories of Cecil Hotel guests who had taken their own lives, further fueling the dark reputation of the place. But it wasn't just suicides that tainted the hotel's history. The site was also the scene of several unsolved murders. In 1964, the prostitute Pigeon Goldie Osgood was found brutally murdered in her room. To this day, the crime remains unsolved, one of the many mysteries that haunt the corridors of the Cecil. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the hotel's history is its connection to serial killers. During the 1980s, the Cecil was the temporary home of Richard Ramirez, better known as the Night Stalker. Ramirez terrorized Los Angeles with a series of home invasions, murders, and ritualistic abuse. He stayed at the hotel while committing many of his crimes, and according to reports, he would throw bloody clothes into a dumpster behind the building before returning to his room as if nothing had happened. The hotel seemed to act as a magnet for evil. Years later, in the 1990s, another serial killer, Jack Unterweger, stayed at the Cecil while on a tour as a journalist. Unterweger, who had been convicted of murder in his native Austria, was in California, supposedly covering the rise of prostitution in Los Angeles. However, during his stay, he murdered several prostitutes, strangling them with their own bras. Once again, the Cecil Hotel was linked to blood and death. Over the years, the hotel only reinforced its reputation as being cursed. Guests reported feeling strange presences in the hallways and rooms. Ghost stories spread, and many believe that the souls of those who died violently at the hotel still haunt the place. The Cecil became an icon of horror and mystery, with its name associated with unexplained tragedies and supernatural events. When Elisa Lam chose to stay at the Cecil in 2013, she had no way of knowing the macabre history of the place. For her, it was just a stop on her trip through California. But for those familiar with the hotel's past, the combination of Elisa's disappearance and the Cecil's dark history seemed like a harbinger of yet another tragedy to be added to the list of disturbing events the location had already witnessed. As the days passed after her disappearance, tension mounted. There was something about that hotel that seemed to attract not just misfortune, but also mysteries that appeared impossible to solve. Elisa Lam was always a curious and dreamy young woman. A student at the University of British Columbia in Canada, Elisa had a deep passion for literature, photography, and writing. On her blog, she documented her life, sharing thoughts about her mental health, her struggles, and the small victories she achieved amid the chaos of her emotions. Elisa was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, a combination that caused her to swing between periods of high energy and enthusiasm, followed by moments of deep sadness and uncertainty. However, she faced her challenges with courage and always strove to maintain a positive outlook. In January 2013, Elisa decided to take a break from her academic life and embark on a solo trip along the west coast of the United States. For her, this was an opportunity to reconnect with herself, to find new horizons, and perhaps some relief from the emotional turmoil she faced. The trip was part of a larger plan, a journey of self-discovery, where Elisa hoped to be inspired by the cities and cultures she would encounter along the way. The young woman began her trip in San Diego, where she spent the first few days exploring the coast and visiting tourist spots. She kept regular contact with her family, calling her parents and updating her blog with stories and reflections about what she had seen and experienced. Her next stop would be Los Angeles, a city that had always fascinated her with its vibrant energy and stories of success, but one that also hid shadows and mysteries. When she arrived in Los Angeles at the end of January, Elisa chose to stay at the Cecil Hotel, a budget-friendly option for a young traveler. At first glance, the hotel didn't raise any concerns. It was just another stop on her trip, a temporary place before moving on to her next destination. For Elisa, the Cecil represented a base to explore the city, visit the Walk of Fame, and the Los Angeles Museum of Art, places she had dreamed of seeing since childhood. But for those familiar with the hotel's reputation, the situation seemed darker. Elisa, however, was unaware of the horrors the hotel harbored in its history. To her, the hotel was just a practical stop on her journey. She continued her days in Los Angeles like any tourist, exploring the city, visiting bookstores and museums, and sharing her experiences on social media. In her posts, Elisa showed excitement about her trip, with photos of urban landscapes and reflections on life. However, something began to change. Although she was maintaining regular contact with her parents, at a certain point, Elisa stopped sending messages. The daily contact, which was a way to reassure her family, suddenly ceased. Days passed, and Elisa no longer answered the phone. Her parents, immediately concerned, realized something was wrong. It was not like Elisa to go so long without communicating, and considering her mental health history, the silence was alarming. They quickly contacted the Los Angeles police and reported Elisa's disappearance. The initial concern soon turned to desperation as the days turned into weeks with no sign of their daughter. Authorities began investigating, focusing on the last place she had been seen, the Cecil Hotel. It was the beginning of a mystery that would leave the city, and eventually the world, perplexed. As the investigation progressed, Elisa's story started gaining the attention of the local media and later, the international press. Who was this young woman who had vanished from one of Los Angeles's most notorious hotels? What had happened to her? As the questions piled up, the answers seemed to be hidden within the dark corridors of the Cecil Hotel. With Elisa Lam's disappearance, tension at the Cecil Hotel and throughout Los Angeles began to rise. The young Canadian student had vanished without a trace, and the Los Angeles police, along with her family, were desperately trying to figure out what had happened. Elisa had last been seen at the hotel, but after days of searching, it seemed no one had any clue as to her whereabouts. Investigators began combing through the hotel, interviewing staff and guests, but found nothing to suggest any unusual behavior. Her luggage was still in her room, her personal belongings untouched. There were no signs of a struggle, nor any evidence that Elisa had left the hotel. It seemed as if she had simply disappeared into thin air. With no obvious leads, the police decided to review the hotel's security cameras, hoping to find something that could shed light on the case. It was then that they discovered what would become one of the most disturbing and enigmatic videos ever recorded. In a security recording dated January 31st, 2013, Elisa was seen for the last time entering one of the Cecil Hotel's elevators. The video showed her alone, but her behavior was unsettling. She entered the elevator and, instead of simply pressing a button to go up or down, she pressed several buttons at once, as if disoriented or desperate. After that, she backed into the corner of the elevator, crouching as if hiding from something or someone. The elevator door didn't close, Elisa then took a few hesitant steps outside, glancing both ways down the hallway, as if checking to see if someone was following her. She then fully exited the elevator and made hand gestures that many described as erratic. It appeared as though Elisa was communicating with something or someone not visible on the camera. Her movements were slow, almost as if she were submerged in another reality, distant from ours. The video showed Elisa entering and exiting the elevator multiple times, seeming increasingly confused. At one point, she appeared to be talking to someone or something invisible to the camera. After a few minutes of this bizarre behavior, Elisa disappeared from the camera's view, and the elevator door finally closed. This was the last time anyone saw her alive. When the video was released to the public, it went viral almost instantly. Elisa's behavior in the elevator sparked a wave of speculation and theories online. Some believed she was running from someone, perhaps someone not captured by the security cameras. Others suggested that Elisa was experiencing a psychotic episode, possibly related to her bipolar disorder. The way she pressed the buttons and gestured in the hallway was seen by many as evidence of an altered mental state. However, there was another, more disturbing theory, that Elisa was interacting with something supernatural. The Cecil Hotel's macabre history, filled with violent deaths, suicides, and suspicious activities, led many to believe that Elisa had fallen victim to an evil entity or paranormal forces. For these theorists, Elisa's strange behavior in the elevator suggested that she was being haunted or pursued by something beyond human comprehension. The video raised more questions than answers, and the investigation continued with no clear direction. As investigators tried to uncover clues, public speculation grew. Every frame of the video was analyzed and reanalyzed countless times by internet detectives, but no theory seemed satisfying enough to fully explain what had happened to Elisa Lam that night. Elisa's family, devastated, struggled to understand their daughter's disappearance. To them, the video provided no comfort, only deepened the mystery. How could a young woman, full of dreams and plans, disappear so inexplicably in broad daylight in a crowded hotel? The lack of answers made the pain unbearable, and the release of the video only brought more attention to the case, turning Elisa's personal tragedy into a global spectacle. As the investigation continued, the theories proliferated, but one question remained unsolved. What happened to Elisa Lam after that moment in the elevator? Her appearance in the video was an enigma. More and more, it seemed that the truth about her disappearance was hidden in the shadows of the Cecil Hotel, a place where secrets accumulated over the years and where answers were as elusive as the victims who disappeared there. After weeks of fruitless searching, the concern over Elisa Lam's disappearance continued to grow. The police investigation had exhausted all obvious leads, yet there were still no clear signs of what could have happened to the young Canadian student. Her parents, in anguish, kept pressuring authorities for answers, while the local media began portraying Elisa's case as one of Los Angeles' most disturbing mysteries. During the time the search unfolded, guests at the Cecil Hotel began to report a series of unusual issues. Many complained about low water pressure in their rooms. Others, more disturbed, reported that the water coming from the taps had a dark color and an unpleasant taste. Initially, the hotel staff believed it to be a problem with the building's old plumbing, which wouldn't have been surprising given the deteriorating state of the place. However, when the hotel's maintenance workers went to inspect the water tanks on the rooftop, which supplied water to the upper floors, they made a macabre discovery that no one could have anticipated. Upon opening one of the large water tank lids, they found the submerged body of a woman, It quickly became clear that it was Elisa Lam, missing for nearly 3 weeks. Her body was found naked, floating in the water that had been supplying the hotel during this entire period. Her clothes and personal belongings, including her watch and room key, were found beside her inside the tank. The discovery was devastating. The case, which had already caused anxiety due to the mystery of her disappearance, now turned into a horrifying and incomprehensible tragedy. The main question everyone asked was, how did Elisa end up there? Access to the hotel rooftop was restricted, and the water tanks were in a difficult-to-reach area, protected by doors and alarms that were supposedly functioning. The police immediately cordoned off the area and began a forensic investigation on site. Elisa had been found in an advanced state of decomposition, which made it difficult to determine the exact cause of death at that time. However, there were no visible signs of trauma on the body that would suggest physical violence, which deepened the mystery surrounding the circumstances of her death. How had she managed to reach the water tank, open the heavy lid, and enter by herself? Rumors quickly started circulating. While the authorities focused on gathering evidence, the public opinion had already formed its own conclusions. The theory that Elisa had taken her own life began to gain traction, especially considering her history of mental health issues. However, for those familiar with the details of the case, the idea of suicide didn't seem entirely plausible. There were too many unexplained factors, such as her access to the rooftop and the condition of her body. Moreover, the sequence of events leading to her death seemed so improbable that more skeptical voices began to raise other possibilities. Had Elisa been pushed into the water tank by someone trying to dispose of evidence? The fact that her clothes were found separately further fueled this theory, even though there was no evidence of a struggle or violence. The hotel was known for housing people with troubled pasts, and the hypothesis that Elisa might have been the victim of a crime started to circulate widely. However, the most intriguing and terrifying theory involved the supernatural. Elisa's disturbing elevator video, combined with the Cecil Hotel's dark history, led many to believe that she had fallen victim to paranormal forces. How else could her erratic behavior captured on the security cameras be explained? For those inclined to believe in the paranormal, Elisa had been interacting with something invisible, perhaps one of the many souls said to haunt the hotel. Meanwhile, Elisa's family struggled to cope with the horror of the discovery. They had traveled from Canada to follow the search, but could never have imagined that their daughter's body would be found under such macabre circumstances. Their grief was compounded by the lack of concrete answers about what really happened to her. The international press began covering the case intensely, turning Elisa's death into a media phenomenon, with speculations emerging from all sides. With Elisa Lam's body recovered, the Los Angeles police initiated an autopsy and toxicological tests. Preliminary results indicated that no illicit drugs or alcohol were present in her system, ruling out the possibility of an overdose. However, her prescribed medications for bipolar disorder were found at levels consistent with her prescription, raising the hypothesis that a psychotic episode may have contributed to her death. Yet, even with these results, many questions remained unanswered. How did she manage to get to the rooftop? How did she access the water tank and enter it without anyone noticing? And above all, why was Elisa behaving so strangely in the moments leading up to her death? The Cecil Hotel, already infamous for its history of tragedies, now had another mystery to add to its dark legacy. The discovery of Elisa Lam's body in the Cecil Hotel's water tanks sent shockwaves through the public. but it didn't provide clear answers. In fact, the mystery only seemed to deepen. The investigation, already surrounded by uncertainties, now faced the daunting task of understanding how Elisa had ended up there and, more importantly, why. The Los Angeles police began a detailed analysis of the scene and the circumstances of her death, attempting to piece together what had happened that fateful night. One of the first points to be investigated was access to the hotel's roof. To reach the water tanks, one had to climb stairs that were supposedly blocked by emergency doors equipped with alarms. These alarms should have gone off if opened, but hotel staff claimed they hadn't heard anything that night. This raised suspicion that either the security system was malfunctioning or someone with access to the hotel had intentionally disabled the alarms. Moreover, the water tanks where Elisa was found were heavy and difficult to open, raising even more questions. Would it have been possible for a young woman, in a supposed psychotic episode, to have the strength and coordination to access the tank lid and enter it without assistance? Many began to question this possibility, fueling speculation that someone else might have been involved or that Elisa might not have been acting alone. With her body recovered and the autopsy conducted, the toxicology report brought intriguing results. There were no signs of recreational drugs or alcohol in Elisa's system, ruling out the possibility that she had been drugged or intoxicated. However, the levels of her prescribed medications for bipolar disorder, such as mood stabilizers and antipsychotics, indicated that she wasn't taking all her prescribed doses regularly. This led doctors to consider the possibility that Elisa was suffering from a psychotic episode at the time of her death. Bipolar disorder can cause manic episodes characterized by erratic behavior, delusions, and impulsivity, followed by deep depressive episodes. To some experts, this explained Elisa's unusual behavior captured in the elevator footage. They suggested that without adequate medication levels, Elisa might have experienced hallucinations or paranoia that led her to flee to the rooftop and eventually hide inside the water tank. However, while plausible, this explanation still didn't answer all the questions. Alternative theories began gaining traction, especially among the public following the case. The elevator video, which had already gone viral on social media, was the primary focus of speculation. The way Elisa behaved, pressing multiple buttons, repeatedly entering and exiting the elevator, gesturing at something invisible, fueled theories that she was being chased. Some people suggested that Elisa was fleeing from someone inside the hotel, but that this person, for some reason, didn't appear on the cameras. Another popular hypothesis involved the idea that Elisa was under the influence of a supernatural presence. The Cecil Hotel's dark history, filled with stories of suicides, murders, and notoriously dangerous guests, reinforced the idea that the hotel was a cursed place. For those who believed in the paranormal, Elisa's erratic behavior in the elevator could be explained by interference from a malevolent entity or a disturbed spirit. This theory, while intriguing to many, was never seriously considered by the police. Beyond the supernatural theories, there was also speculation that Elisa might have been the victim of a crime. There was the possibility that someone at the hotel, perhaps a guest or staff member, had followed her to the rooftop and forced her into the water tank, covering up the crime as an accident. However, the absence of clear signs of struggle or violence on Elisa's body made this line of investigation difficult to pursue. Meanwhile, Elisa's family continued to seek answers, but the evidence collected up to that point offered no definitive conclusions. The official report ultimately ruled Elisa's death as an accidental drowning, likely caused by her fragile mental state. Even so, the case continued to spark debate, especially since many believed that the mystery had not been fully resolved. Without a clear and irrefutable explanation, Elisa Lam's case remained shrouded in doubts and uncertainties. The internet buzzed with discussions and theories, and the police investigation, although closed, left a legacy of unanswered questions. What really happened that night? Was Elisa battling her own demons, or was there something more? Something we still cannot understand, lurking within the walls of the Cecil Hotel? The case of Elisa Lam was not just another unexplained tragedy. It quickly became a cultural phenomenon. From the moment the disturbing video of Elisa in the elevator was released, it spread across social media and became a global topic of discussion. The internet, especially platforms like YouTube, Reddit, and mystery forums, was flooded with theories and debates about what had really happened to the young woman. This unsolved mystery captivated the public in a way that few criminal cases do. Elisa's strange behavior, combined with the eerie atmosphere of the Cecil Hotel and the lack of clear answers, turned the story into a modern legend. Documentaries, podcasts, and television programs were produced to explore the many aspects of the case. Netflix's documentary Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, released in 2021, was one of the most notable examples of the ongoing public interest in the case, offering new perspectives on the events and reigniting discussions. Additionally, the case of Elisa Lam was widely adapted into fiction. The TV series American Horror Story Hotel was heavily inspired by the history of the Cecil Hotel and the tragedies surrounding it, including references to Elisa's disappearance and death. Movies and crime series episodes also used the case as a basis for their stories, further cementing its place in popular imagination. The virality of the video and the mystery surrounding Elisa's death made her story transcend the boundaries of a simple police case. She became a symbol of human fragility, mental health struggles, and the hidden dangers in seemingly ordinary places. The Cecil Hotel, already known for its dark reputation, was seen as an even more sinister and cursed location after the events involving Elisa. Even years after her death, Elisa Lam remains a name that evokes curiosity, sadness, and fear. Her story lives on not only as an unsolved mystery, but as a reflection of how the internet and modern culture turn real-life tragedies into global phenomena. The case of Elisa Lam continues to intrigue and disturb both experts and the general public. Even after extensive investigations, autopsies, and public debates, Elisa's death remains shrouded in mystery. The official explanation that she suffered a psychotic episode and accidentally drowned in the water tank of the Cecil Hotel hasn't been enough to put an end to speculation. There are gaps that seem difficult to fill, and the very inexplicable nature of the event keeps the case alive in people's minds. Elisa's bizarre behavior in the elevator video remains one of the most debated aspects. While some attribute her actions to a mental breakdown, others believe something more sinister was at play that night. Her mental health condition is certainly an important piece of the puzzle, but the circumstances surrounding her death, the restricted access to the roof, the difficulty of opening the water tank, and the absence of clear signs of violence raise questions that have not been fully answered. The cultural impact of this case is partly due to the feeling that we may never know the full truth. Unsolved cases hold a lasting fascination for the public because they leave room for speculation and imagination. In Elisa's case, this sense of uncertainty is even stronger because of the setting in which it occurred, the Cecil Hotel, a place with a dark history and an atmosphere laden with past tragedies. Beyond theories of mental health and crime, supernatural explanations have gained traction. The hotel itself is seen by many as a place of negative energy, a gathering point for paranormal forces. For those who believe in such things, Elisa Lam's case is just another manifestation of the evil that permeates the Cecil Hotel. Although these theories aren't taken seriously by authorities, they continue to fuel public fascination and the enduring mystery surrounding the case. However, perhaps the most unsettling aspect of Elisa's case is the emotional impact it has had. Her death is not just a puzzle to be solved, but a human tragedy. A young woman full of dreams and hopes, struggling with her mental health, met an inexplicable and lonely end. This deeply resonates with people, especially as conversations around mental health and its complexities become more prominent in society. Elisa Lam's legacy is ultimately a reflection of our own search for answers in a world where not all mysteries can be solved. Her case, widely discussed, investigated, and explored, continues to remind us of how frightening the unknown can be, not just because of what we don't understand about the world, but also because of what we fail to comprehend about ourselves. In the end, Elisa Lam became more than just a name in the news. She became a symbol of human fragility, of the struggle against internal and external forces often beyond our control, and of how, in a world filled with technology and surveillance, some tragedies remain profoundly incomprehensible.